Well, I've pounded this area so many times with my Legend. If I find anything interesting, I'm a happy camper. And there is another button. Oh, it's got a design on it. This is tombac. Tombac? You know, tombac. It's an old-fashioned metal. Tombac? Yeah, you know, nobody's used tombac in 200 years. Tombac? Tombac? They used to make that with poison. Tombac? Tombac was forged in the fires of Mount Doom by Sauron himself. Tombac?
You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
You know, if you watch metal detecting videos, you come across people now and then talk about tombac. I always get a kick out of what they say about it. So today is just a quick metal detecting video and a little talk about what tombac really is. So back in the 1600s, when the Dutch colonized Indonesia, they found the people there were using this metal they called tembaga. Now the Dutch liked it, and they brought it back to Europe, and they called it tombac. What is it? Well, it's a copper alloy, and when we talk about copper alloys, there's three main copper alloys. There is copper mixed with nickel, and you get cupronickel, not pumpernickel, cupronickel. There's copper mixed with tin, and you get bronze, and then there's copper mixed with zinc, and you get brass. Now, with each one of them, there are different levels of ratios of copper to the other metals and other ingredients added. You get variations on it. So there's over 400 different variations of brass alone, and that's where tombac is. So tombac that was brought back from Indonesia was 65% copper and 35% zinc. Very, very shiny, decorative, and pretty resistant to tarnish. So that's why it caught the Dutch attention. As far as poison being added to it, arsenic has been mined for thousands of years. It has uses, and yes, it is a poison, but any chemist will tell you death is in the dose. Small trace amounts added to substances for different purposes were very useful. So tiny amounts added to tombac actually made it even more resistant to tarnishing. That's why when you dig them out of the ground, these buttons and things, when you dig these buttons and things out of the ground, they're nice and shiny, and they've held up really, really well. Sometimes it's because of the arsenic that was added, made them much more stable, much more resistant to tarnish. But it's not enough to hurt you. And as far as tombac being an old-fashioned metal, well, yeah, it's been around since the 1600s in Europe and the New World. It's been around a lot longer in the Far East. As I said, there's over 400 different kinds of brass. Some of those brasses are tombac. So all tombac is brass, but not all brass is tombac.
Is that like all thumbs are fingers, but not all fingers are thumbs? Surprisingly, yes. Nice.
Since the 1600s, it's been used for a number of different things, all the way up through to today. They're still using tombac for different things. Tombac has been used for coins. During World War II, nickel was in short supply. It was used for armor and things like that in the war. So here in the United States, we made our nickels out of silver. In Canada in 1944, their nickel was tombac. Tombac has been used for military medals, for badges and buttons and all kinds of things over the years. Here's a picture of a German spiked helmet called a Pickelhaube. It's made with tombac. Even more recently, in 1980, the Russians made the bronze Olympic medals. Bronze isn't even a brass, but they made the bronze Olympic medals out of tombac. So tombac's been around for a long time. It's still around. and it's just a type of a brass. When you see a copper alloy come out of the ground, you don't know what it is. The only way to know exactly what it is or what kind of metal it is to do some kind of a metallurgical test.
I used the Hewlett-Packard 5710A dual-column gas chromatograph with flame analyzation detectors. Is that thing turbocharged? Only on the floor model.
So that's it, just a quick talk about tombac. It's really nothing mysterious, it's just a type of brass. On to the next. And with these buttons, a lot of people wonder why or how they could possibly lose so many buttons. You go to an old farm or an old house, you find tons of buttons. And there's really two answers to that question. One is, back in the day, they only had natural thread, which was very brittle. Over time, it broke and the button fell off. But there's a secondary reason too. There's only one loop for the shank, so there was only one strand of thread holding the button on. Now modern buttons have 4 holes, so there's much more thread holding the button on, so even if some of the thread gives way, the button still holds on in time for you to repair it. But with these, once the thread gave way, the button fell off. Good for us, bad for them. On to the next. Well, now amongst the iron, a brass nut made in Brooklyn, all the way from Brooklyn. On to the next. Well, I had to fight a tree root for a shell casing. I didn't have to, but I wanted to. On to the next. And now, real squirrely little signal. I think it's a tiny silver button. It's broken on the back, the shank is broken. It's offset. It's handmade. It's got a design on it. I'll clean that up. You'll see it right here. Awesome. Outstanding. On to the next. Well, and now a real deep toy gun. In really bad shape. That was tough getting out of there without breaking it into a million pieces. On to the next. Well, I was getting a weird jumpy signal down here, but it was a high tone. And I don't know what it is, but it's a whole bunch of little tiny fragments of brass. So I'm going to clean those up, see if I can't piece them back together and see what it was. It might have been a button, might have been a tag, might have been something else. Who knows? But that was a fishing expedition to find all the pieces in the hole. Alright, I think that's all of them. Alright, there they are. On to the next. Well, I had a high deep tone, or a deep high tone. I popped the plug, and this popped out. It's a button. Thought for a second I had a half cent, but I'll clean that up, see if there's any design. There is. It looks like there's a design on it, but these things are like Rorschach tests. You see things when there's nothing there because of all the corrosion on it. But I'll clean it up. You'll see it right here. Awesome. On to the next. Well, that was a nice tone. Not quite sure what it is. I'll get you out for the next one, do a live dig. On to the next. Well, that was an awful signal, so I didn't bring you out, but that's a fired bullet that hit something. On to the next. Well, it was ringing kind of low. It looks like silver, but I'm not sure. I think it's a bit boss. Not sure. I'll clean it up and see if there's a design on it. Looks like there's a mark on the back. A hallmark of some kind. And a scratch on the front from my shovel. Oh well, it's big. On to the next. And sometimes those deep high tones are just old square nails. That one's in really good shape, but not quite what I'm looking for. On to the next. Well, at least it's old. Gave a great signal. Anything ring shaped like that gives a great signal. On to the next. One good find, that's all I want. On to the next. Well, a terrible signal. It really was a terrible signal down here. But it's a pin. I can't read that. I'll clean it up. You'll see it right here. Awesome. Awesome. I was about to give up on that. It's so tiny I couldn't find it. On to the next. Well, that's going to do it for this adventure. Not a whole lot of stuff, but stay tuned. Come along on the next one. See you there.